Berlin or Copenhagen have embraced the sponge city concept, using permeable surfaces and green infrastructure to manage stormwater and reduce flood risks. However, the bureaucratic hurdles in permitting these kind of initiatives must be streamlined to encourage faster implementation. At the same time, we need to shift our legislative focus. The real challenge lies rather in the enforcement, in the implementation and financing of existing laws than in creating new ones. We need to streamline regulations, avoid overlap between different legislative frameworks, and ensure fast enforcement. Effective implementation is crucial to meeting EU-wide water goals, particularly in the context of achieving the objectives of the Water Framework Directive and improving water quality across member states. Finally, we must recognize that financing this transformation is no small task. Modernizing water infrastructure across Europe is paramount, but extremely costly. To address this funding challenge, we need a more robust and diversified financing landscape, combining public funds with private investments. But to meet these funding needs, we must create clear long-term financing models. Public-private partnerships are essential in mobilizing the necessary capital, but they must be structured carefully since water services remain a public good service. The EU could also consider creating a dedicated fund for water resilience, facilitating the flow of capital into the water sector while ensuring that the financing models serve long-term public interest. Finally, the European Investment Bank could play a central role through offering funding mechanisms that can help catalyze large-scale investments in both infrastructure and climate adaptation technologies. In conclusion, I would say the task is considerable but manageable. The integration of innovative technologies, climate-resilient infrastructure, data-driven policymaking, and public-private collaboration will form the foundation of Europe's water strategy. By working together across governments, businesses, and communities, I'm confident that we can secure a sustainable water future for all of Europe, safeguard ecosystems, and ensure our economic competitiveness for generations to come. Thank you very much for your attention.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Paul. I'm not sure that we are here to watch or to talk about water, but just to celebrate your moving from Brussels to Hollywood, because you are a filmmaker now. So I feel very happy because here in this room, I can say proudly, there is the Wunder team. Paul Rubik, Bernille, Hildegard, of course Durk, and also EEC, not me, EEC. Because 3.5 years ago, we started to talk about water for the first time as a front-runner institutions. And since the first moment, we started to talk with the Water Group, with Bernille. And since then, I think we achieved for the first time, I think in the last decades, an amazing result. For the first time, 3 institutions asking the same thing, calling the same actions, achieved the same result. An amazing result. And I would like to stress this point, because for the first time, EU Commission has a commissioner dedicated on water. For the first time, we touch in some way the quantitative dimension of water in EU policies. And it's amazing, according by the treaty, according to the rules we have, the puzzling situation we have at the institutional level. And when talking about water and the quantitative dimension of water is so difficult. Is it? Now, it's still difficult because we have European, national, regional, local, energy, basin, municipality, authorities overlapping each other, not always on the same line, but sometimes also conflicting. But for the first time, the most important thing was to have an holistic approach, not just the environmentalist point of view, but also the industrial, the farming, the consumer, the social, the external relations. I don't want to repeat everything Hildegard already in a great way already said, but I would like to touch a few points. We achieved another result, I think, really important. We accelerated the process to have the KeyCom water from the EIT. The acceleration to have the establishment of this potential network, I think, as broad as possible across Europe, because we need hubs. We need water innovation hubs in Europe, competence centers in Europe to assist SMEs to adopt new technologies, and water is still, I'm coming from industrial sector, is a transparent input for the cost, and because it's not the most important like energy or others. So it's crucial to be close to the companies to increase the awareness, to increase the competencies, upskilling, reskilling at any level. But we have also to push in the agriculture sector the awareness and to overcome and to bypass a sort of reluctancy in adopting traditional way to adopt water, not to use water in order to be much more efficient. But efficiency, of course, is one of the pillars, water efficiency. But we need also to take into account the effectiveness of water distribution. And we have to remember that still now, roughly 10 million of Europeans are not allowed to access fresh and clean water. So we have a lot of things to do now in order to support the idea, the pillars presented or to be presented by the Commission with the water resilience strategy that is so welcomed by all the community, by all society, and hopefully also by all governments and authorities at national level. And we need also maybe to understand how to create a sort of conditionality, granting money and financial resources to member states in order to achieve results. Smart metering, yes, smart metering is just a tool. We need to know what is happening in our countries. If we have no recording of extraction points, no metering is possible. No metering, no data. No data, no policy. No policy, blah, blah. This is the first step. The second one, the governance. Creating a sort of pushing our member states to adopt a coherent approach in managing water planning, for sure, as Hilde said, is a public good, public planning. Management is not our business. Public, private, mixed is another story, but planning. But until now, very few countries adopted a national strategy. Very few countries had a real coordination point with a special envoy, for example, with real power to coordinate different ministries. And third, we are talking about money and finance. Of course, it's crucial. Is it true that we have money, or is we have not money enough, or is it true that probably we have less institutional ideas? Probably we have much more money than ideas now. When we called to have a blue transition fund, a sort of umbrella fund at European level matching public and private financial sources, thinking in a sort of out-of-the-box way, creating new instruments. For example, pushing in a voluntary way what we already had as experience in energy market with a white certificate. Why we cannot introduce the blue certificate? Tradable, pushing and giving some incentives to industries or to companies adopting technologies or processes saving water. Why not? Why not to have a sort of new schemes also for public authorities in order to achieve more ambitious goals? So these are just few points that I would like to express with you today in a very clear way, because I think that now the real point is act. We already did a lot. I think the Commissioner and the Commission are in an absolutely good track. We will support all the efforts coming from them in order to have the possibility also at lower level, at national level, to be effective. And this is the challenge, the next challenge. So, thank you so much, dear Paul. Have you already bought your ticket to Hollywood or not? Okay, yes, good. Ciao.
Actually, as one of the gifts that my husband gave me this Christmas was a DNA test to find out if it's really true what I have always been told, namely that, of course, I'm a Dane, but I also have a lot of Spanish blood in my veins, and I have a lot of Norwegian blood in my veins. It is now tested. I am 98% Dane and 2% Swedish. So as a kind of a substitute for Jessica Roswell today, I hope I can accomplish to actually just be a kind of an echo of what already Hildegard and also Pietro have said about the water complexity and the water context and the landscape of European water situation and challenges that we are facing, and the reason for why we are here today, but also why we are looking so much forward to see the water resilience strategy. It is announced that it will come before the beginning of summer. It's warm today, but it's not summertime really yet. We still have some weeks ahead of us. Hopefully it will be before the summer break. And I look very much forward to see how you will embrace it. It's a strategy, and saying that also hopefully underlines that this is the second new beginning of the discourse of taking water much more serious in Europe than we have done the last 3.5 years. Very well supported by the great work of Water Europe and the EESC and Pietro. Without the two of you, we wouldn't have had this growing echo chamber that finally also reached the Council and the Commission design after the election, that now we have indeed a Commissioner with responsibility on water, and also a design of the Commission that is so much putting forward that all solutions must be made co-creatively. It's not only an envy. It's not only an environmental issue to deal with the water challenges. It takes a collective effort from all Commissioner colleagues, as it also does going forward, takes a collective effort of how to co-create cross-border. There are small countries, there are big countries, there are countries who are facing changes in the landscape of the climate because of climate change. And before we could predict much more how the weather would be, and we could plan, farmers could plan, industry could plan, citizens could be aware about how the water infrastructure would react to droughts and et cetera, et cetera. But now everything is changed due to the climate changes. So everybody has to be alert and aware of how to tackle either droughts or flooding or heavy rain, or to adapt to new technologies that will make it possible for us to be, as you mentioned, Pietro, water efficient. But before becoming that, we also need to be better to control where is actually water. We need smart metering. We need also to talk about the methodology on how to measure what water efficiency is. Because is it like we see it in energy? Perhaps. But it could also be that it's something that is more related to the regional and national profiles of a country, because not all European countries are alike when it comes to water, not only because of size, but in general because of how the geomorphology is actually a reality or facts. But we hope that the strategy will invite also to a continued more into the deep, maybe into the unknown, on how to really make Europe water resilient in the future. But also doing it a little bit like walking the talk. Both Hildegard and Pietro, you have said almost it all. I would like to add to all you have said and all the hopes and the ideas that you have for the strategy that I can't see why you should be disappointed. The one on the funds, that is not up to us in the cabinet of Roswell alone to decide. That's a bigger issue with the MFF negotiations. But what I would like to underline as hopefully something that we will see even more when the strategy is being presented is that we walk the talk in Europe, by that also making changes on a global scale. Because the challenges that we are facing to deal with in Europe, we share that with the rest of the world.
But if we can manage 27 member states with all our indifferences and sometimes also discussions in between each other, sector-specific, country-specific, discipline-specific, whatever specific. If we can make it work and become water resilient, we are a role model and a living lab for the rest of the world. And that will be of the benefit also of linking the water resilience strategy to competitiveness. And that's maybe also why we should be careful to hope for more regulation to come with the water strategy, because we have in Europe for many years been very good at regulating. Asia has been good at copying what we do. And on the other side of the dam, they have been very good at taking all the innovators and even also our money, the investors, and then to grow the innovative technologies outside of Europe, although they actually learned in universities and then universities of applied sciences, and even in entrepreneurial SMEs who were thinking out of the box and found new ideas. But when they were then about to scale it up, to deploy it inside of Europe to our all common shared benefit, the regulations, or at least the perception of how regulations were to be translated into a national law made it difficult. And that I really hope we will see will change also with the water strategy, that we will see that deployment of water technologies will go across all borders in Europe, so that we can be also an outstanding global example for how to co-create and take also the cultures by which we now work with water, and we question them and redesign how to work more in sync with the water cycles, regionally, locally, and also especially in the border areas. Therefore, also, I think you will be hopefully happy to see that there is also a very large global dimension. Deployment, walking the talk, being a profound example by ourselves, but also engaging even stronger going forward in the global discussion, in the UN platforms, in the PRIMA, so in the Mediterranean area, Global South, on many, many different platforms where water meets the challenges and can act as the glue to make more sustainable business models and collaborations between EU and the rest of the world. I can't say more than that. You have to wait with just as many butterflies in your tummy that I have, that we will see a water resilience strategy that will be only the beginning of the next big wave of collaboration between the institutions of the European Parliament, the Council, of course, because they have to also embrace and say, yay, hooray, we will now enforce and implement all the existing regulations even better than we do already now. I'm still counting that they will be so thrilled, but they have to be, of course. And then the very strong collaboration that we have with the civil society, especially with the EESC, but everybody who would like to participate, especially the young generations, because if we can't make the Blue Deal really work, we will not reach the Green Deal, and that we have taken to our hearts, but we haven't really understood that we will not become green without the blue. But also, if we don't manage the blue, we will lose the green, and we will also damage our democracy. We saw that in the last fall with what happened, unfortunately, in Valencia and Spain, and what a big impact it had on the way that the Commission was going forward, being designed, and the issues being addressed in the hearings, etc., etc. Not to say that that was a disturbance, it's just a reality that we need to reach out to each other and help each other to deal with water. We cannot allow any one of the 27 member states or stakeholder groups to say, okay, we don't have a problem with water, so we stay out of the complexity of taking part of that work. We have to do it together. I look so much forward to see the movie, and I look so much forward to continue to collaborate with all of you and all of your friends back home in your country or your organization, etc., etc. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Yes, Pernille, thank you so much. We go forward. You have spoken about the metrics of water. And we all know that we have enough, 2/3 of the globe is covered by water, but only 1% is able to be used. The main water resources are, I think, in Brazil, in Russia, in United States. So Europe has less than 1% in the metrics of water. And of course, with this less than 1%, we have to be very careful. And at least water is a part of the nexus of water, food, and energy. And for all three areas, we're in an area of emergency preparedness. People get more, the attitude is very difficult, and how can we get the right strategy? And we learned from the CO2 debate, from the global warming, where we had a young girl who go on strike, didn't like to go to school, make a lot of protest, but maybe it doesn't change the world. So we thought maybe we look for a girl who is exactly the opposite. Enjoys to go to school, enjoys to speak with scientists, want to be herself a role model of how to doing it, and being sympathetic overall as well. So I'm very happy that it's possible to have this role model. And now I want to ask Luna to stand up and give her a loud applause. Luna the Mazemaker. And we never should forget Dieter Grohmann, who was behind the scene. And Adam El Messaniani. And to conclude, you have spoken about regulation. I think what we want to have, making out of 27 legislations on national level and regional level and local level, one artificial intelligence constructed new way of doing it as simple with national language where everybody can perform in this area. So that's the work for the Commission, and our work is now to show the movie. Let's go and let's show this wonderful movie. Thank you so much. We all know that the movie up till now got 4 prizes in New York, in the 5 Continents Festival for the best performing movie. And I'm very happy that New York and the globe is looking to us, and Europe is going forefront. Thank you.
There is a human being, a family, a community that depends on you.
The extremes are increasing, both in terms of too much water and too little water.
Sadly, water is also a source of conflict and sometimes even armed conflict.
Water is a power. So yes, we need to be aware and become more and more aware, and we need to take it serious in water governance.
The changes in the amount of rainfall and temperature, and then not the everyday change, that's the weather, but it's the 30-year average change towards higher temperature, towards more extremes in rainfall and drought.
I started concerning myself more about water, also because I've heard where I live in Belgium that there is a water drought, but it's not known to many people. So I wanted to research this more. I wanted to find somebody who can follow me, who can take me on this journey, who can find the people for me as well, because I had no idea where I started at. So this is how it came to be. I know it's easy to feel overwhelmed when we hear climate change, but that's why I'm doing this, to find solutions buried beneath the fear. Climate change is on the news, social media, everywhere. But what does it really mean? Are we living on borrowed time? I believe that knowledge gives you power over your fears, because sometimes facing the unknown is the only way to stop being afraid of it, to start understanding. And that's what I hope to find on this journey: answers, clarity, and maybe a little bit of hope. So we have all heard the word climate change. Now, what is climate change for your perspective?
The effects of climate change to a large degree are demonstrated or happening through water. And we need to deal with water and the negative effects of how that works in order to address the impacts of climate change.
In the Netherlands, everyone knows the Netherlands is a very water-rich country. And still, when we talk to the Ministry of Infrastructure here, they say we are in a crisis of droughts.
Did you know that after a drought, it's actually easier to get a flash flood than if the drought hadn't even happened? Here's why. Imagine two pieces of land. One is super dry from all the sun, while the other is healthy with some rain. So, of course, the plants on the dry side die, but it's not just the plants. The soil itself changes. It gets hard, almost like concrete. Now, when it rains heavily, this changes everything. On the healthy side, the ground soaks up the water. But on the drought side, since the soil is so hard, the water just stays on top and flows away, causing floods in lower areas. That's why, even though you really need the rain, you might get flash floods after a drought.
We should also try and separate a little bit what is climate from weather. And this is a common mistake I think that people make.
And then we see big changes in our design procedures, where before we had some kind of design parameters that we say once in a rain of once in 20 years, but nowadays rains of 1 or 20 years happens 2 times in a year. So we have to rethink the entire understanding of what does climate change mean for design and what it means for the infrastructure. And how can our infrastructure be more resilient to climate change, and how our infrastructure can be more impact or less impacting on climate change.
Hi, Stefan. Thank you so much for meeting me here online. I have some questions concerning climate change and what that is in your perspective.
Hello, Luna. Good to see you. Climate change refers to the long-term shift in temperature and typical weather patterns. It is driven by factors like burning fossil fuels, deforestation, and industrial processes, contributing to the ongoing climate change we are all experiencing.
I keep wondering, is climate change as simple as they make it out to be? Are we all experiencing different realities. The facts seem real enough, but does fear really help us move forward? Am I missing something? What if the answers lie somewhere in between, hidden beneath the noise? That's what I want to figure out. To get past the fear and the headlines. To see what's really at the heart of this.
Going to war for water because we have no clean water, not enough water, floods, extreme events with water, they come more and more. If that will end up in war, it will be used in war probably because we use everything we can in war, and water is a power. So yes, we need to be aware and become more and more aware, and we need to take it serious in water governance.
And I read a lot online and I hear a lot from my friends that we are facing sort of an era with floods. There's either too much water or not enough water. And I want to know, are we going to war about water?
Think of the civil war in Syria. The reason for it, the starting point, was water scarcity in a certain region. Think of the importance of water now also in the ongoing war in the Ukraine. Or as we speak, at this moment in time, there is a dispute between the United States and Mexico about the Rio Grande and the Colorado River and how the water should be sourced from those basins.
When a region experiences a water shortage, it starts a domino effect that can have disastrous consequences. Water scarcity leads to food insecurity as crops die and farmers can't irrigate their fields. Critical systems begin to fail, sparking violence, either internal between members of the affected population or external by their government to secure more water from contested sources. These are usually small-scale conflicts and often don't involve the use of military force. Fighting over water is not unheard of, but so far, there have been fewer than 30 instances of armed conflict over this precious resource. This number will increase dramatically in the coming years.
Now, when you speak, of course, about increasing conflict, you can also look at conflict between, in a geographical sense, or between different peoples. And that is indeed something to be concerned about. Especially, I think I recently heard somebody saying, if people are hungry, they start fighting. If people are thirsty, they start moving.
Water forces us to work together. It always did. Like living in the Netherlands was only possible if you worked together to protect yourselves from water. Living in the Sahara is only possible if you work together to get enough water. So there is an interdependency created by water, and this could, of course, lead to conflicts. On the other hand, it can also lead to a good way of structure and organizing your society.
Business, politics, or the striving for power? Is that behind it all? Climate change very much seems real, but can panic solve real issues? Panic never was a good teacher, and offensive screaming is no solution. Or is it? Sometimes we just need to take the right path, or to meet the right person.
Then I hear a lot of solutions are very local. Could we maybe something like that see in a much larger scale in society, in a whole city, for example?
Sure. We see very nice examples which started with a small scale. We call it, let's say, if you look into urban scales, like if I look here through the window now, you see lots of greens combined with the gray infrastructure, and we call it the green infrastructure and blue infrastructure. So getting more from the let's say very urbanized areas which are really prone to climate changes into making it more green and making nature-based solutions which will mitigate the climate change, retaining rainwater, reusing it rather than letting it runoff and quickly reach the recipients.
The idea of going from small scale to large scale also requires really systemic changes. That means that society needs to be on board. When we talk about nature-based solutions, it's making sure that society, us as we walk in the street, understand what that means. That to have a forest growing in a certain area within the city is a positive thing. It provides shade, it provides more ground where the water can infiltrate. These sort of activities and these types of solutions are really important, not only from a local scale, but as we start to push that into a more international, more global scale, it needs to have an entire systemic approach to it. So society on board, politicians on board, universities, technology on board, and everybody pushing in that same direction.
And citizens.
And citizens, 100%. This is, we all citizens, no matter what part of society we form part of, but we all have the same challenges that we need to overcome.
But we have also to always be careful about one technology being applied the same way everywhere in the world. Because some technology are can be more adapted the way they are in a certain city, in a certain context, but not in another context, depending on the social values, on how the citizen will accept this technology, etc. So it's important to understand the nuances if we really want to implement the right technologies at the right time for the right problem.
You work closely as well with China, I hear, so can you tell me more about that?
Climate change is a global issue, and while Western societies, like those in Europe, tend to focus more on their impacts, it is essential to examine what's happening in other parts of the world. China has set ambitious goals for carbon neutrality by 2060. But the real challenge for China is balancing its rapid economic growth with sustainable practices. One powerful example is Yusin village in Zhejiang province, which I visited. Yusin was a small mining village, relying on industries like lime kilns and cement factories that brought prosperity, but also at a substantial environmental cost. In the early 2000s, Yusin transformed these industry sites into beautiful landscapes with bamboo forests, lotus ponds, fish farms, and tea plants. By the way, the tea is excellent. This transformation aligns with President Xi Jinping's vision that lucid waters and lush mountains are invaluable assets. He initiated the transition in Yusin when he was still in a leading position in the Zhejiang province. Yusin is now a model for balancing economic growth with ecological preservation. The village literally has shifted from selling stones to selling beautiful scenery. Today, it earns over 7.7 million annually, just alone from tourism. And what makes the Yusin story, for me, even more impressive is the integration of high-tech industry, which now accounts for about 30% of the village's economy. During my time there, I worked in a modern digital workspace with 5G internet everywhere. It's incredible how technology has played a role in sustaining this green growth. Yusin's transformation is a part of China's broader effort to prioritize ecological protection, green development, and low-carbon solutions. It shows, when aligned with national policies, local efforts can result in sustainable green transformations that improve communities' qualities of life. This is just only happening in China. Similar eco-villages projects are happening all around the world, in Africa, and there are also plenty of them in Europe.
The problem is that the water challenges are global, but indeed the solutions need to be found on a local level. Yeah? To be honest, I think the city is a good level to address those water challenges. Yeah? So good local policies, I think, are key to addressing the water challenges, and they can be found. But it requires, I would say, strong governance, strong policy making, strong awareness of politicians. And I think there you have a bit of the challenge is that water is a politically weak topic, because firstly, water is a very fragmented topic. There are about 70,000 different utilities across Europe. Yeah? If you look at Industrial use. There are so many different, let's say, factories across Europe that use water, that need water for their economic production, but the issues around water rarely reach the boardroom discussions in those same companies. If you look at agricultural use of water, of course, we cannot grow food without water. But we have 9 million different farmers across Europe, so I would say also that water problem is never, I would say, properly reached at the European level or at the national level. The other one is that water is always treated as a transversal topic. Water is never a standalone topic, but usually is part of environmental policy. Mostly it's part of environmental policy, ignoring many of the other values of water, which means that nobody is held accountable. No politician is fully responsible for the water issue.
The larger the scale, the better, because that's really the direction for solutions to go. But for a good solution for water, you need to look at the environment, the direct environment. What is the soil? What is the water? How high is the groundwater level? How close is it? How much relief do you have? What type of species are there? Those are local circumstances that need a local solution, but if you have the ambition on a higher level, you know with all the local solutions what you're working towards, and it will lead to a large-scale solution in textile.
Mm-hmm. So we have to research every individual environment almost.
Maybe research is a bit too big a word, but just have a look. What type of species are there around there? What can you save? What can you connect? Which types of nature can you connect? What types of water are available from the surroundings? Create something nice with what is available there will lead to a sustainable solution for that local place.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not talking about an extensive 3-year research, but please look in your databases and look in the field, like what's there, what can we use?
And what we say about water, it's a global issue, but a local challenge as well. We need to figure out how to use the water locally, because our groundwater won't move to the other side of the Netherlands. If it's polluted, it's our problem here, and we need to figure it out. But the pollution comes everywhere. So the solution can be found in a broader scale, but we need to implement it locally.
Duracell is not alone. There are many other global companies that apply local solutions that have proved to be successful on a larger scale. If it is working in one area, there is a good chance that it might be also working in another area. Most importantly, in the water context is the involvement of local communities and stakeholder engagement. We are here in Belgium, in the heart of Europe, where we've got our European manufacturing site. For our solutions, we are working very closely with the local communities and together implementing the initiatives.
Het water van het bekken, van het afvalwaterbekken, wordt omhoog gepompt en komt in deze eerste compartiment. Hier komt zoutzuur bij, wordt er toegevoegd en ijzerchloride. En dit is om de pH naar beneden te brengen van het water, om onze zware metalen te kunnen opvangen. Dan gaat er daarna een overloop naar het andere compartiment. En daar voegen we een natroloog bij, dat de pH terug omhoog gaat. En waarom is dat? Omdat in het heet compartiment komt er polyelektrolyt bij. En de pH moet hoog genoeg zijn om vlokken kunnen te maken. Dus weer kijken naar de vlokken. Dan alles. Zo zien onze vlokjes eruit en die bezinken nu. Juist. Heel stilletjes zakken.
Wat is dat precies?
De vlokjes, daar zitten de zware metalen in. En dan wordt het gevormd met PE, dat is een plakkerig kleefmiddel, zoals lijm. Ongeveer zo, dat plakt en dat maakt vlokjes. De vlokjes en het water, die gaan naar deze tank, de lamellentank. in de lamellentank zakken de vlokken. En dit is proper water. Dat zullen we zelf zien. Dat gaat naar een andere tank en dan wordt het naar de straat gepompt. Dat gaan we beneden zelf zien. Hier staan we aan onze filterkamerpers. De vlokken die we daar juist gezien hebben daarboven, worden naar deze sliptank geperst. Die gaan via deze pomp worden die naar de filterkamerpers geperst. En hier, onder een bepaalde druk, gaan die vlokken geperst worden. En tussen die platen komen filterkoeken.
Nadat jullie de filterkoeken eigenlijk uit hebben, gooien jullie dan dit stuk weg? Of,
dit komen ze ophalen. Dit wordt afgevoerd en gaat naar de cement- en betonindustrie.
That last conversation gave me a lot to think about. Yes, climate change is real. It's happening right now. But here's the thing. We're not just helpless passengers on a train out of control. We have choices, actions to take, things to learn. So I need to know more, much more, to understand the full picture. It's easy to say climate change, but what does that mean for you, for me, in the place I call home? So in this modern day society, we see these solutions implemented by a lot of technologies. Why don't we really see this on a very much larger scale?
I need to understand a little bit better what you mean by that question.
So technology, I feel that we don't really see this as an everyday city person in our community.
Because technologies with regard to water management.
Regard to water.
Yeah, because I think many of the technologies used are not visible because they're taking place underground, in the sewage system, or in the water treatment plants. That again, I think, requires us to have the right drivers and the right means. For me, there are 3 key drivers for change in the way we manage and operate water in our society. First one, I would say the biggest driver has to do with legislation and policy. The second driver has to do with water pricing. It's a very sensitive topic.
Continue.
So the second has to do with water pricing. Water pricing is a very sensitive topic because, of course, we have concepts like human right to water. But I think proper water pricing policies do not need and are not at all in conflict with the human right to water. Actually, I think water pricing is essential to drive the proper response of our citizens towards the availability of water. And I can give you a very nice example, I think. 2 years ago, I moved to a new house. And so I registered my new house with the Brussels Water Company. And since then, so during 2 years, I did not receive a water bill because they had some administrative challenges where they were implementing a new digital management system and they were unable to issue invoices. So suddenly, after 2 years, I get a water bill of about 3,000 euros. So I started monitoring, and I discovered that basically, as a household with, I would say, when I have 3 daughters, we were using 3 times as much water as a normal household does. So I've started monitoring my daughter's showering behavior, and I discovered that they were taking very long showers. So in 1 month after receiving my first bill, I've been able to reduce our water consumption by almost 300%, or going down from 35 cubic meters to 10 cubic meters a month. So just to give you an indication how pricing can work. Now, of course, as I said, urban context very different. Industrial context easier, although there may also be quite a lot of resistance. And of course, water pricing also in an agriculture context, I think, is important. I understand the challenges that exist in the agriculture context, where I think we're dealing with a failing value chain, in which the farmers don't get the right amount of income they should be getting from their product, and too much is going to the supermarkets. But yeah, after that has been repaired, I think introducing water pricing also in an agriculture context is going to be very important to drive also sustainable water management in that context.
I think partly because in water management, the solutions, the technical parts are not so visible. We do a lot of modeling. So we're researching beforehand what type of solution is going to work here. You take a measure, you simulate what it's going to do, and you see, well, is this what I wanted to reach? Do I have to change it? Or should I adapt it again to find the right solution? So a lot of technology is actually in that trying to find the best options, and another tech part is in the monitoring. And there are a lot of developments have been going on there, like eDNA. I don't know how you heard it. If you take a water sample, you can just put it into a machine, and it tells you what types of species are in there. So that is really new technological developments that are helping us to know what species are where and how we can improve their habitat, because if you don't know what's there, you don't know what to improve.
Yeah, there are a lot of brilliant technical solutions going around. I work in European projects that they try to find these technological solutions to measure pollution, to take it out, for example. But still, in the end, when we find these solutions, we as human beings and the people working in water need to be able to implement and accept it. So it's also a cultural thing. Do we want everything to be handled and solved by technology, for example? In the end, I think the biggest solution will come from us talking and taking some time to see how we can solve it. And especially if we talk about pollution, not putting the things in there, because we find solutions to take it out. But if we don't put it in there, it would help a lot.
Many climate solutions might seem small or local, but cities are at the heart of tackling climate change on a larger scale. Some cities today are boldly transitioning to renewable energy, developing efficient public transport, and promoting green buildings. Dialing things back by 100 years is not the path, but that pushes forward with new technologies. And in China, let's take Shenzhen as an example. It is a massive city where no bus runs on fossil fuels. Some of these buses are even autonomous driving, supported by 5G technology on every corner. That's how advanced infrastructure holds the key to climate solutions. But it's not just about the technology. It is about collaboration in science and tech across the globe. It is essential to make these systems work. Imagine your city is entirely working on electric buses. Of course, scaling these efforts take political will, proper funding, and most importantly, the public support. Local governments and businesses, citizens must unite to drive large-scale cities transformation. And remember, reinventing a city only works if everyone is on board.
So what do you do in these solutions exactly?
Well, as part of our Powering a Greener Future program, we focus on sustainability initiatives for Europe and for Africa. We look not only at things like battery collection or emissions reduction, we're also focusing on water and water replenishment. And our approach is a very holistic one. We are looking at the reduction of water consumption. We are looking at changing the water sources. And we are also looking at rainwater harvesting. When you compare our water consumption back to 2015 versus today, you see that we have saved more than 20% of the water. The question is, how did we do that? Well, when you take a look at this little battery, even this battery has got some drops of water in it. For the cathode, which is the positive part of the battery, we need to have a moist environment in the production area. For many, many years, we have used spray water. We are changing that now. We no longer need the spray water, and that's an effective part of how we are saving water.
And the technology is then there already. We see it. We have heard about it. Why Is there a reason they're not implemented so in such a larger scale?
Yes, there are reasons. To me, one of the most important reasons is that the period between invention and innovation is too long. Invention is something that is new in our heads. Innovation is when invention is applied in a reality. And that period takes more than 10 years. So what we need first to shorten this period, which means we need more intensive research, we need more field research, and most importantly, we need the launching customers. The launching customers who have a guts to admire the technology and to be the first one who will apply it. Once the door is open, then business can go. We need the market, we need the demand, we need the purpose. And then we have academia to bring it together. And we need manufacturers and users. So when we have that together, then we can talk about innovation in place.
The idea of bringing something into market doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be a success. And I'll give you an example. There was a company, they managed to produce this bicycle. This invention, which is brilliant in its idea, was to have those people put the water within this drum as the front wheel of the bicycle, cycle back to their home, and while they're cycling, that water is getting treated, and then when they arrived home, that water was then already ready to drink. Problem there is that there was a society that wasn't involved in that innovation. They weren't at all consulted as to how that could work within their own community, what that meant for them as a community, and most importantly, there was no value chain attached to that. So the minute that bicycle broke down, there was nobody that could replace any parts. There was no manufacturers in place that could actually manufacture something like that. So if you have a technology and you bring it to market, the important point is that the entire community, whether it is a community within a city, a community that is rural, they are involved within that innovation process. So we need full stakeholder engagement, everybody involved on bringing these types of innovations to market, then that can be successful.
You would be surprised by the amount of technologies that are created almost on a daily basis in an environment like this at IHE, but also in many different other organizations. The amount of research projects that are funded, for example, by the European Commission is huge. But sometimes the uptake process needs to take into account, like you said, David, how the system looks like. I just want to mention an anecdote. A former classmate of mine when I studied here at IHE, she was from Lesotho, and she was mentioning to me about the fact that her grandmother would very persistently refuse to use a toilet in her mother's place because she was looking for a bush to go and defecate, which means that for her a toilet was too much of an innovation to be taken up for a person like her.
And what do you do with your company?
Well, as Water Europe, we are actually, we're not a company, we're an association, a member-based association, which has as, I would say, a key objective, what we call achieving a water-smart society. I will not bore you right now with the precise details of what is a water-smart society, but basically what we're trying to achieve is that, I would say, we get sustainable water management for all users in our society, across Europe, by, on one hand, promoting collaboration throughout the value chain, where we bring together industry, research organizations, public authorities, and civil society to jointly try to address the water challenges in that context. And where necessary also try to, I would say, get temporary exceptions from legal obligations to actually see if there is not, I would say, you could say, heritage legislation that was created 20, 30 years ago for completely different purposes, but is actually now standing in the way of new innovative approaches. And a third way is really our advocacy program, which is really working with the European institutions, European Parliament, European Commission, the Council, to inform them of the needs of the water sector in the widest sense, but also the challenges, and to get the policies, the regulation that we really need to change the way we manage and operate water in our society.
H2O people, we run the European Junior Water Program. We designed it to support young water professionals from all over Europe to create a new culture of working, to know what's going on the other side, and to see indeed if there are solutions found in Spain about droughts can help us in Belgium and in the Netherlands, because for us it's new to have droughts, and the other way around. So we mainly focus on supporting people working in the water sector to work in a better way together, and also to work in a better way together with their surroundings. So we support stakeholder engagement so that they talk with the surroundings and how to implement their solutions.
Yeah, maybe I can start with that one. So this is a consulting company which basically looks at bringing society closer to these innovations, bringing political innovation close to these technologies as well, so that the entire system is working in the same direction to overcome a challenge, whether it's that particular technology or any other type of technology that can overcome that challenge. There are these grand challenges that we are all facing, but if we have the ability to work together and overcome these challenges, no matter the technology, we can definitely get there.
Our role is actually first to be curious. So to look into fundamental aspects of innovations and to look what is new and how we can make things better and in a more efficient way. But next to that, as I said, we also have to look what is market really looking for and what kind of our research can be applied really in practice, so that our research is not only relevant for fundamentals and for publishing, but also to have a meaning in real life in terms of applications. So we have here a number of examples. In the past, we have, for example, something called arsenic family filter, where we applied in many places in Pakistan, for example, when we treat arsenic from groundwater so that people can use and drink really clean water. We have an emergency toilet called ESOS Smart Toilet that we checked and tested in Philippines and in Kenya. And we have something also called the shit killer, which is a technology to actually treat our pee and poo under very challenging conditions. For example, in emergency camps or for people which are displaced, so that we can apply immediately a technology that can deal with the excreta from people until more mid-term and long-term solutions are in place. So here we have a small design of pre-treatment of a shit killer. And here we want to make septic sludge a bit more thick. So in the first tank here we put septic sludge and we let it settle, and then we pump it into the second reactor where we have mixing, coagulation and flocculation. We add the chemicals and we get the bigger flocks, like here on the screen. And after that we can introduce it into a filter where we get it even more thicker sludge, like here. And then we can introduce it in a shit killer where it will further dry, and at the end we get very dry sludge, like you can see here on the screen.
Technology is not just a technological problem. It's a collaboration and systemic process as well. So for us it's really important that we don't just develop the technology, but we understand who are the actors in place. International cooperation to that extent is extremely important, because if you, for example, would like to apply a technology developed in Europe somewhere else in a developing country, you need the people from these developing countries, you need the experts, you need the people that are knowledgeable about the context, and you need to involve the people, because you also want to understand, like Daniel was saying, what kind of demand is there and how you can fit the technology with the demand. So international partnership and international cooperation is a key input there in the whole technological process.
What we try to do is, I'm in water management, we try to make solutions that are sustainable. So we always want to create a robust water system. We often work for water boards, communities, government boards that need to find a good solution for their water. And we always try to do it in such a way that it's not only good for the water, but it's also good for everything around the water. And that's not always that much more difficult, but it is a mindset. Like if you create a meander in a river, that does help for your hydraulics because it gives more space, it delays. So it makes the water situation better. It creates a buffer during high flood, whereas for very dry periods, you still have a little bit of water going on, flowing. And flowing water is always better for the water quality than still standing water. But what you do at the same time is look at how it fits in the natural area and in the species that are around there to also increase their habitat. So you can try and combine it. And I think there's always chances to, if you're working on water, to improve biodiversity at the same time.
So this is the creek that Sarah told you about, and this is a great example of where nature and technical issues can actually work together. So the problem was that the flow of this creek was way too fast. So they restored it to its natural shape. So it went from straight to meandering. And that's actually also great for biodiversity because you have more different micro habitats, and that's great for the fish. But also, as you can see, there's very young trees around. With restoring the creek, they actually made a lot of space for new nature instead of agriculture. So the soil is now more clean than before, and therefore the water quality is also better, which of course is also great for the fish. So yeah. Yeah, so today, because of the rain, we can see a lot of animals. But the snails are, of course, loving this year because we have a lot of the rain. So here you have a tiger snail. And yeah, you can see it because of the tiger spots. It's not a very rare one, but it's a beautiful one, I think. And you can see like 2 more species of snails within the vegetation. So that's quite cool. And this whole line of vegetation is also very good for all these insects that live below water as well as above water, like dragonflies, dance flies, but also some water beetles, mosquitoes. People don't like those, but other insects love them. Also, bats love them, so that's great.
It's funny how the more we know, the more we start to question. And then those questions lead to more answers, and those answers open up even more questions. I guess that's science, right? A constant flow of discovery that never really stops. And honestly, that's what makes this journey exciting. It's not about finding all the answers in one place. It's about letting the knowledge unfold bit by bit. Every little piece brings us closer to understanding how we fit into this bigger picture of climate, nature, and the world we're trying to protect.
And what can we do as an everyday city person? Can we help ourselves? Can we combine our efforts as a community?
I think as an individual, there are many things that you can do. The first thing is you are a consumer. So at the end of the day, it is your choice whether you want to go for high quality and environmentally conscious products or whether you go for the cheaper solutions. Cheaper solutions usually means there are less focus on quality, less focus on the environment. There are, of course, other things that you can do. Start informing you. And I see through the questions that you are already very much engaged in the topic. Build your knowledge. Reach out to experts. Form your own opinion, and then join, whether it's good companies, whether it's societal groups, whether it's NGOs, and make sure that at the end of the day, we achieve what we want to achieve, and that is to have secure water sources for 2030 and beyond.
Another problem for water is that the water challenge is very counterintuitive. Because, I mean, we look outside and we see all the rain coming from the sky, and then we hear messages about water scarcity. Are you going to believe that? So that's one of the challenges. We need to make people understand better what water scarcity is, what the impacts of climate change are. Actually, for many people, it is difficult to believe, but Belgium is the most water-scarce country after Cyprus in Europe. Why? Because water scarcity is something very different from drought. Drought is not enough water that is entering. Water scarcity is, okay, you have a certain amount of water coming into the country, and then all the different uses that are made for it. Belgium, for example, especially Flanders, is a highly densely populated area with strong economic development. All these aspects require a lot of water, and there simply is not enough water because of most of the water coming into Belgium comes in from the sky. So although there is a lot of rain, actually there's not enough rain.
Not enough rain to support our community.
Yes.
In our
so there
country.
So then, in order to deal with the limited amount of water that we have, so water as a limited resource, we need to find new innovative ways to deal with the available waters. For example, promoting water reuse and recycling, to agriculture, but also to industry. There are some nice examples also of urban and industrial symbiosis, where the industry takes the water that comes out of the wastewater treatment plants to use it for the purposes in industry, depending, of course, on the quality that they need.
Do you want to start on that one? Yeah. What can we do? What can we do as individuals? Well, first of all, I think that we need to become bringing the message of the importance of the water challenges to our friends, to our society, to our family, to let them become aware that there is, let's say, these issues, these challenges are becoming more and more important, and also to let people understand that it's not just about a politician task or a technologist task to come up with a solution, but in fact, if every of us will bring its own little contribution, and especially to become aware of the problem, we have done our work in putting a little bit of the one piece of the puzzle together.
Yeah, the question is not easy, right? Because we all want to do our part, but the challenges are really grand. They are difficult to overcome. But every little piece adds to the bigger puzzle to overcome this challenge. It's like a small water drop joining another water drop that eventually runs into the river, that creates a massive dam. And this type of analogy relates directly to what we can do individually from a household level, whether that we're living in a drought conditions. For example, in Barcelona, we have buckets in our bathtubs where we fill the water first before it gets warm. That water we use to flush our toilets or to water our plants. This small little activity that we do at our home level is something that if everybody did, we would all be saving an enormous amount of water. But there's more that you can do. You can also join different activities or as climate activists that are looking to create this systemic change, that are looking to really make a movement and really get their voices heard. Proper policies that are in place within the area that you live in, you need to go and vote to see that change happen.
And I found out that actually using the mechanisms of the Institute, I can be much more influential in the world in terms of environmental protection, reduction of climate change, providing sanitation to everyone. And what is a key here, and that is lessons that I learned in over the last 2 decades, is a partnership with our partners all over the world, and using the partnership as the multiplier of our activities so that SDGs, so UN Sustainable Development Goals, which will, with the target of 2030, can be achieved. And we have now at this moment 1,300 master students only studying sanitation and water supply. And I think this, for me as individual, is impact to the society and multiplier, so that through our partnership we can really advocate safe water and sanitation and, you know, help everybody to get services to all, even the poorest.
Individual actions matter, but absolute power comes from collective efforts. Significant changes happen when people unite through grassroots movements, community initiatives, or even international agreements. We see this in the global push for renewable energy, climate activism, and also companies committing to sustainability. The trigger is combining personal responsibility with systemic actions, where real, lasting solutions to the climate lies. It is about a collective effort. We need governments, businesses, and communities to come together, like we have seen in places like Yusin Village, in my example before. They are transforming from a mining economy to an eco-tourism hub. And it works.
Yeah, that's difficult. How can an individual help, especially from a specific situation? Not that events such as flood and droughts are happening. I always believe that just one drop will change the flow and create waves in the end. So if you are living in the city or in a rural spot as here, we can do a lot by being aware that our water is precious, that water is cleaned before you open the tap, and that there is a lot of things going on to help that. That it is also limited to be able to use it, but also, for example, that all the things that we buy, they're produced with water. And just by the awareness of making different choices, we run, for example, social media campaigns to make aware what the effect is. So with that, we can, with a little bit of change of behavior of what we need to talk about it with our friends, I think would already be of great help.
You can use water wisely. You can try and love what you see in nature. I mean, even if it's in a park, if you see the bees and the butterflies, respect them. If you have a balcony, put some plants there, and not some tropical plants, but put plants that the insects of your environment are used to. So you can find little places to support life.
It's easy to forget how connected everything is. Each of us, no matter how small or far apart we seem, we're all part of this bigger system. I know that we think, what can one person do in the face of climate change? But every journey begins with a single step. And maybe that doesn't have to be taken alone. We can walk together, work together, and find our way together. Maybe it's not about one big solution that fixes everything. Let's say we go to the future, like 30 years from now. Where would you see this yourself? Where would you see the water company here?
Well, I mean, as I already mentioned, I think in the beginning, as Water Europe, we're very much a vision-driven organization also. So our ambition is to achieve what we call a water smart society. Now, water smart society has very many dimensions, but it really departs from the value of water for our economy, society, and biodiversity, looking at three key objectives. So water security, water sustainability, and water resilience. And then we have identified 5 key innovation areas that can bring us from the current situation to that future water smart society. And my big hope is that in 30 to 50 years, we have achieved that water smart society. Yeah. So really, I would say, having a good, stable water management in Europe, but also making use of, I would say, the real opportunities that we have as Europe, as the European Union, for sustainable water management. Because, I mean, well, we see now a shift, of course, with the change of the 9th legislator of the European Commission now to the 10th, where we also see a movement in political orientation of the European Parliament, for example. You clearly will see a shift from previously a Green Deal discourse, which was very environmental focused, to a discussion now which will be much more, I would say, economic focused, much more also in view of the current, I would say, geographical tensions, focused on, I would say, stability for Europe, but also security for Europe. And there really water can play a key role, because very few people realize that in order to get a bigger share of the chips production in Europe, because right now I would say Taiwan is the powerhouse of the chips production globally. Yeah? As European Union, we have the ambition to raise the European share in that chips production from 10 to 20%. Yeah? Very few people realize that for a 30 centimeter wafer circuit to produce that, you need on average 11,000 liters of water. The same thing as we have the transition, we have the ambition to create a green and digital economy in Europe. For that, we need a lot of data centers. Yeah. Then you need to realize that a 1 megawatt data center on an annual basis requires about 25 million liters of water, and 1 megawatt is nothing. Yeah. I mean, I think an average a data center has about 20 to 50 megawatt capacity per year. Yeah. The hydrogen economy. We're speaking about the hydrogen economy. Then in order to produce 1 kilogram of green hydrogen, so hydrogen produced with environmentally friendly means, you need 9 kilograms of ultra pure water. So all these figures, I think, indicate that how important good water management is to secure a stable position of Europe, of the European Union, I would say, in the new concert of big, I would say, geostrategic blocks in Europe, in the world.
Not everything is going well, I will not say that, but I see so many water boards are working on all their stream flows, like their stream flow restoration, approximately 150 kilometers per water board. I'm just talking for the Netherlands now. That's in total, that would be more than 3,500 kilometers of stream flow, which are improved every year. So if you continue that and use the growing insight by learning by doing, I mean, of course you learn what doesn't work and what does work over time, so you improve. That would mean that in 30 years you have, 100,000 kilometers of better environment for water and everything living around the water. So I think there's hope.
Start with small, tangible changes in your daily life. But don't forget, the real impact only comes when we engage more people, especially in engineering, biology, chemistry, and other technology areas. And don't forget languages. Languages are very crucial for the most important ingredients for collaboration. We need intelligent, fast solutions. That is why science and technology is critical. So let us start where we are today. And remember, when combined with others, every small action can create a more significant shift towards a sustainable world. A good future requires hard work and cooperation from everyone, on both a local and a global scale. Together, we can build a sustainable and prosperous world for the future of generations. Luna, thank you for your time today to discuss these important topics. Thanks.
Thanks to the efforts of Duracell and many other companies, we will have a high number of watersheds that are secure, that are sustainable, and that will source water also in the future in 2030 and beyond. I'm saying this because I'm deeply convinced that many companies are moving in that direction. I'm also saying that because I see that many investors are more and more interested in the topic. Only recently, an initiative of 300 investors and investor groups that are representing a staggering $21 trillion of assets that they are managing have urged companies to improve their water resource management and to improve also the disclosure about it. It's this sort of initiatives that make me very confident that we will have a bright future ahead.
30 years ago from now, I think I will be maybe in a wheelchair somewhere, enjoying the fruits of our work. Where the society will be, it's very difficult to predict, because when you look the speed of developments, how the technology developed over the last 10 years, now I think 1 year of our time today is equivalent to 10 years of maybe 30 years ago, or maybe 100 years ago. So this speed is really exponentially growing, and what is happening is amazing. So it's really a pleasure to live today in this world with all this technology, to witness and to use what other people are producing, and to get things together and to put these inventions and innovations developed in other areas together and to put your own flavor in it and create added value. So with artificial intelligence, which should be used in a proper way, and with all other developments that we have now, we will have a magnificent set of tools to combat the challenges that we have. So unless we do something very crazy, I think that our future is bright.
Yeah, I'm just as optimistic. Really, I feel that where we were 30 years ago to where we are today is completely different. We have a lot more knowledge than we've ever had. We know how to use that knowledge. We've seen the mistakes that have been made previously, and we are going about correcting these mistakes. We are working with conserving and restoring nature, which is a massive, massive boost to our own health and our own future. So to take what we've done in those last 30 years and to multiply it in a log frame way, we can see that our future is really bright. We are really fortunate to be living in the days that we are living in today. 30 years from now, I can fully see us collaborating on a global scale. We will be living in an area where we're working with, together and alongside nature. There is no more pollution, and as a society, we are combined and collaborating together. Call me an idealist, but considering where we've come from to where we are, 30 years from now, I can only see a positive and bright future ahead of us.
Yeah, so I'm at least as optimistic as both of you, David and Damir, because we keep, let's say, saying, okay, this is the Anthropocene, so it's the era where man is inducing all sorts of problems. But it's also an era where, if you think about like 50 years ago, no one would even talk about the problem of plastic, for example. And no one even not talk about the problem of your first question, climate change. Only 50 years ago, which in all the time span of humanity is nothing. So all this, let's say, and already the actions that have been taken, for example, to reduce plastic pollution, and everything that is now going on developing solutions for the climate crisis, which means that in 30 years from now, probably this problem will be solved 100% or almost quite solved, because that's the power of humanity, and we are able to address issues very effectively.
In the end, I think in 30 years, we will be more aware that water is precious and water has a power, but also water gives us pleasure. It gives us life and fun. We play in the pool and all these things. So I think we become more aware of the diversity of water, and we become smarter as well to organize it in a more collaborative way, with more people engaged, but that's just my dream. So that also people with interest, if you are just a citizen living in your city, to know and to be engaged with what happens to the water. And I see already glimpses of those things happening. We have now active communities that are striving for the water, people that stand up and say, yeah, we need to do something. And I hope in that sense that also a more cultural approach, art, exhibitions, pictures, in the end, that we can make it more visible for everyone. Because especially groundwater, it's difficult to forget that we have such a beauty in the ground.
The journey is steep, full of twists and turns, and sometimes you feel like you're not making any progress at all. Heraclitus, the Greek philosopher, said the only constant in life is change. If change is inevitable, then maybe we shouldn't fear it. Maybe instead we should embrace it. Every step up feels like a small victory.
I would leave now, what can I do tomorrow?
If you were to leave now,
Yes.
every little action in a positive direction creates massive systemic change. So these little small actions, I once walked past a can that was lying on the road. I picked it up and my girls were next to me and I threw it in the bin, and they asked me, why would you do that? It's not yours. It wasn't, you didn't throw it on the ground. I said, no, but this little small action can create a change that we could like to see. The very next day, we walked past a packet of chips that was lying on the ground. My daughter ran back, picked it up and threw it in the bin. It gave me goosebumps because I saw that this change is happening on this very small level. One step at a time, we can create this massive systemic change that we want to see.
Yes, indeed. Even the longest journey starts with the first step. And if we delay this first step, every day that we miss is lost.
I studied here at HE Delft in 2004, which is more or less 20 years ago. And I met a few weeks ago a former classmate of mine from Costa Rica, who told me, I still remember the moment that you asked me to turn off the tap water while I was brushing my teeth. After 20 years. So I would say, do something like that with friends, colleagues, just to get there, become more sensitive about water, even in these little gestures.
Firstly, be careful with how long you stand under the shower.
Yeah.
That's a very. But
as
also,
you notice.
Yes, as I noticed, yes, as I had to learn the hard way. So pay attention to that. But in general, I think I would say, there are very many technologies. Yeah, for example, in your house, instead of flushing your toilet, yeah, with drinking water, which is really a waste of the good quality, yeah. Instead of flushing your toilet with drinking water, use grey water in your house. There are very nice technologies in your house which will allow you to use, I would say, the used water from your shower, etc., to flush your toilet and to run your laundry machine. That's one way of addressing it. Having a water well, a rain well, or in your house or in your garden, if you have the space to address that. So you can use that. There are very, very many opportunities. When you flush the toilet, having the option between 6 liters or 3 liters. Yeah, very many opportunities. But I think the biggest challenge is that you become aware of it. And as I said, as the water challenge is so counterintuitive, most people simply do not see the water crisis.
It all starts with the mindset. The mindset is be open and be aware of the challenges that we are facing as societies and that we are facing as mankind. However, approach them with a proactive and constructive mindset. It's about the challenges and the solutions and how to make sure that we implement the solutions for the future, for you, for me, and everybody else.
I don't know if you have a balcony.
We can, well, yeah.
So you can make your balcony good for the species, the insects that are near your place. You can use your water wisely. You can talk to the kids around you and learn them to love insects. Because that's what I always find a shame, that kids are afraid of little animals. And I think that parents or other people, adults must have taught them. Mm-hmm. If we just start loving these little animals everywhere, because these are the basis for everything. I mean, these are also the basis for the birds. They're the start of the food web, or even below that, but that's invisible. It's a bit hard. Mm-hmm. So I think just education for the young ones and really living up to that yourself, showing a love for everything that's alive.
Standing here, it all looks so clear. I've learned that parts of the climate change can be reversed and other parts at least softened. And that's not a small thing. With the right technology, behaviors, and awareness, we can actually make a difference. We can prepare, adapt, and find ways to get through the toughest challenge together. And maybe that's what this journey has been all about. Not just finding answers, but finding the hope to believe that change is possible. That together we can build a future where we're not just surviving, but actually thriving. There is no need to fear. The only challenge is to face the unknown.
On water as a critical issue, because we know it's a big problem for Europe, it's a challenge for Europe, but it's a much bigger challenge for other regions in the world.
Remember this, behind every line you work on, every word or comma you wrestle with here at COP, there is a human being, a family, a community that depends on you.
The extremes are increasing, both in terms of too much water and too little water.
What you studied, but previously you worked as a diplomat and advisor at the German Foreign Office. You served in the Berlin House of Representatives from 2011 to 2019, and in the European Parliament you focus on development, environment, and EU-Israeli relationship, and of course, very importantly, you chair the MEP Water. Yeah. Then Stine Bosse, welcome. So as a Danish politician and former business executive, I think you probably worked at Grundfos. Okay. Are you a board member? Yeah. Good. So before you were elected to the European Parliament in 2024, you have, of course, a law degree from the University of Copenhagen. As you already mentioned, CEO at Nordic insurance group Vik Vesta. and you represent the Danish moderates in the Renew group in the European Parliament, and very importantly, again, you serve as Vice President of the MEP Water Group. Then we continue. Do you need an introduction, Paul? This is Paul. Okay. Paul is an Austrian politician and former member of the European Parliament of the EPP group. How long have you been in the European Parliament?
Close to 24 years.
24 years. So you have a doctorate in business administration from the Johannes Kepler University in Linz. And before you entered politics, you managed a family blacksmith business.
Yes.
Yeah. And founded several companies. So you're a man from the practice. And in the European Parliament, you're focused on SMEs, research, industry, and international trade, and currently a member of. And then, last but not least, we have Alain Coheur. Alain is a Belgian expert in social economy and health policy. You're the director of the European and International Affairs at Solidaris, a major Belgian mutual health insurer. And you have been a member of the European Economic and Social Committee since 2015. And you chaired the EESC section for the single market production and consumption, and vice president of the Social Economy Europe, and a member, of course, of the MEP. Welcome, everybody. So as said, we need to be mindful of time. So I will condense the discussion a little bit, but I promise you the content will be the same. I will make sure that is the case. So, Hildegard, last week the European Parliament voted on the Water Resilience Report, and as chair of the MEP Water Group, what do you personally see as the biggest takeaway? And in your view, what are the key steps needed to translate its ambition into actionable outcomes?
Well, I'm super happy that the Parliament has been very fast, because it's a huge, it's a good thing to influence on the proposal which will come up from the Commission, because as it was said, water is an issue which is carried by the people, which comes bottom up, and this is why it's good that we have the initiative report, and I'm very glad as a member of the center. It's a balanced report that we take into consideration this holistic approach we were talking about: the quantity, the quality, the innovation, and the security. I think this is the most important thing. There was a lot of participation. We had 1,900 amendments. This is a lot. I mean, the poor colleague who had to deal with that. But it shows, the degree of participation and interest. And I'm also guilty of 50 of amendments, and I'm happy that most of them passed, I think. But this shows, that the interest, and this is the impetus we can build on. And I'm very glad that Pernille is with us, that we can now influence on the Commission. And this gives me, a good feeling about it, that for the next 4 years, we can keep it on the agenda and impact on it.
Shall I take this one?
Yes.
Or we share them like that? Well, yes, I can only applaud exactly what you're saying. It's about time that water really sort of raises up on our agenda. And to be honest, I mean, let me just also put our minds to what we probably should have done, paid more attention to the Water Framework Directive. It's 20 years old. Now we're talking about simplification. Now we're talking about, changing the rules and the regulation model and so on. We have to also be able to implement. So I'm very, very happy with everything that's in there. I would have wished that there was a little bit more muscle for the Commission to push, to make sure that things actually, start really going and rolling in the member states. But let's see if it doesn't come, go in that direction anyway, because that is really what we need. This is a good framework. This is a good starting point, but we really need things to happen on the ground.
Quick follow-up question: that more muscle, how would you like to have seen that? In what form?
I was clear with this in my campaign. First of all, we need to make sure that the member states actually deal with the water issues. We need to make sure that there is also a framework for the investment side, very obvious, but also that at the end of the day, if nation states don't get on board putting in legislation, making sure that the water quality is sufficient and that we deal with, making sure that we have clean water, full stop. And when we have too much water, how we deal with that, all these water issues, if that doesn't happen in the member state level, it should be sanctioned. Exactly, thank you. and not in a way that's just, we can do that, we can deal with it next year. It should be, because we have not got 20 years more. We just have, and I can speak for my own country. It's very, very devastating state of life especially in the inner waters, but also in the surrounding waters. Look at the Baltic Sea. It's the 5th most polluted sea in the world. You would not think that. You would think that would be somewhere else in the world. That's here. So that's just where I stem from. And I know all the ins and outs of why it is difficult and what we should do. And now in Denmark, we have this 3-party agreement in place, which I really keep my fingers crossed it's going to solve, the majority of these problems. But we must feel, I'm a grandmother, I must feel a big obligation towards my grandchildren that this is fixed.
Then, Mr. Alain Coheur, the EU Blue Deal is now 3 years old. Yeah? How do you assess the main impact of this, I think, very important initiative by the European Union?
Thank you, it's green, yes. Yes, 3 years, it's very short. Can you imagine 3 years after, we have a global architectural vision of what we want to see, what we want to have for the future for water? It's exceptional. It seems that we can do things at political level with the support of all the European institutions and with the support of the stakeholders. So it's a global step that we have made all together only in 3 years. And I'm very proud of that, of course. And with the support of the ESC, the teams that we have there, the president, it was a real challenge to have that. Not an easy task, of course. Just to give you some information about in 2024, we have 1,600 articles across more than 700 media, what is terrible as communication and to give visibility of the Blue Deal. So never forget that the Blue Deal is 15 principles and 21 principles of action. So in those documents, we have all what we are doing now for the future. And 3 years ago, we cannot imagine that we will have a commissioner in charge of water resilience. It was unforeseen. And then we have the engagement of the European Parliament with now a clear vision for the future, a clear engagement. And we have also, and it's very important to underline it because we have to reach it, it's the European Citizen Initiative for Water Smart and Resilient Europe. You have to sign this because we will push again the Commission to make a step forward. And it's very, very important to do that. And I just want to make a short personal. I live in a region 4 years ago, there was a flood, and the flood destroyed all the valley. We had 39 dead in this region. And I don't know if you have lived this situation, but after 3 days of devastation, when I arrived in the valley, along the river, everything was destroyed. It was a war situation. You cannot imagine the people there with nothing. So now our goal is to anticipate this kind of catastrophic situation. But it's our duty here to do this job for the future, for the new generation.
Do you think there would have been a water resilience in the strategy without a call for an EU Blue Deal? Without the call for an EU Blue Deal?
I think that you need to push. So, and the Blue Deal is the push for all the steps that we have done until now. So maybe without the Blue Deal, it probably not arrive, but maybe not so easily. And in the 3 years, never forget that we have also the election. So during 6 months, there was nobody. So the stakeholders take their own stick to continue to make the appeal for the Blue Deal, for the commissioner, for the parliament, etc. So we have the stakeholders made a lot of.
I think you put a lot of things in action.
Yeah.
Very good, Paul. Then I turn to you. Now, your film highlights just how much climate change is putting pressure on our systems. Now, from your perspective, how should Europe rethink and adapt its water infrastructure to handle?
Yes, I think Luna took the right approach. What can I do myself? How can I be educated? How can I ask community to be with me? To show that yourself you are acting and doing positive things. That's the so-called bottom-up approach. But it's never one way, you know. We also need a top-down approach, and I think the top-down approach would be to see which challenges I had. Where can we see that emergencies are coming up? Like you said, a flood. Only if it's every 100 years. We should rethink. What does it mean? What do we have to do? And if it's a construction industry, if it's a lot of activities which we could easily afford because it's so much invested into this area. And at least we should learn from the legislators, maybe all over the world, but let's start with our communities, with our regions, with our national states. So for the Commission, I would say, we need a mapping of the legislation which is existing in Europe. All the legislation in Europe, we need a mapping of this. And then we need an AI system where with different language models, we can see what is the right size which we can introduce. So the truth is we need tailor-made solutions for any person to say. So personalized water abilities and how we can act with water. And that's the right approach, because if you said 1,500 amendments. I know legislation, European Union in detail since 24 years or more. And it's getting more and more and more. The truth is we should come back to the basics. What is really essential? And where is criminal activity, which we have to push as hard as possible? And where is education?
Question: Do you think we have enough up-to-date data available to make our decisions on?
No, that's the reason why Pascal Lamy, one of our great thinkers in Europe, said we need a kind of digital twin. We need a mapping of data. We should know what's going on in the area. And if you see that around the globe, the water is very different. Do we really need sweet water everywhere? Is it not possible to use salt water because it's 70% of the area is water on the earth, and it's a minimum which is sweet water, and how to use the different types of sweet water, and then of course it's also a cascadic use of water. I always have a lot of fun when I say we have a bottle of water in the restaurant. How much is it? €5 maybe. 1 liter still water, €5. If you take it out of a pipe at home, 1 cubic meter is €5. It's a factor of 1,000. So if we think in Africa or wherever, China, poor areas, piped water is a very important activity.
Thank you, Bentele. Hildegard, sorry. I'm turning back to you. The Ninisto report makes it clear Europe needs to invest in water if we want to be ready for climate extremes and demographic shifts. What's your take on how can European policy be better prepared for what is coming, especially with all the uncertainties we saw in the film?
Well, I think to have a strategy is the first step. But I think the investment is really a key issue. And I'm glad that we have also somebody who's dealing with finance, because there is a financing gap, not just an implementing gap. And, I'm a bit sad because we had the Resilience and Recovery Fund, that was in the last term. We took up large amounts of debts in the European Union, which we'll have to pay back from our EU budget. And some member states invested smartly. I know Italy did it, for example. They detected many leakages and invested into their water systems. But I would say it was a missed opportunity. The money was spread a little bit all over. And we need to prioritize. There are so many things. And now if you just think defense is coming up, so there's so many needs. And I'm a bit afraid that water, energy is there. There's so many investment needs. So we need to prioritize. And this is why we have to come up also. What I know, the investments are not super smart, big, but they are very effective. And this we should, I think, work out, and we should also have best practice. What I said is public-private partnerships. We should figure it out how it could work at a community level, but we should start with it. It is a challenge, and I'm not so sure, about new funds. We always ask for new funds. I also asked for a new raw materials fund last term. Everybody's asking for new funds. But I think it's about priorities, and water has to, considered a bigger priority in investments as important as energy. And if, for example, it would help, also at the community level, not to have just somebody for energy, but also a water, task force or a manager, or, give a face to it. This person in my community is in charge that will have enough water in the future, this kind of, and also, we should campaign on it as politicians. This is very essential, substantial things, and we should be also, we should give information. What have you done in the last 4 or 5 years to guarantee, a secure water supply?
I have a quick follow-up question, because I think this is very important what you're saying, yeah. Because I think one of the weaknesses with regard to water is that water is so transversal, yeah. So basically, yeah. Which leads to the fact that usually politically, be it at municipal level, national level, European level, traditionally nobody is really responsible for water. Yeah? So how do we make this happen? Yeah, that at every level we have somebody who is responsible and can be held accountable, also politically. Have you?
I don't want to create new jobs, That's not what I advocate for. But in my former position, I also was a spokesperson for education. So I think it really, as Luna did it, we need education. We need to understand pupils that they know how the water is treated. What is the sewage system? What's in my pipes? All the questions she was asking, going to the factory. How do you deal with water? Do you waste water? And ask yourself, am I wasting water? I think that's the start. But I have to say one thing, and that gives me a bit also, pessimism. If you look into the European Parliament, we have now political forces who are not interested in information, who don't want to change things, who don't believe in science. So we have a hard task ahead of us, and we should really stick together, all those, progressive or this, forces who really want to tackle the issue, because there is a lot of counter streams there of people who just don't want to know anything. They think everything goes on like it used to be. It's not the case. We really have to be, and I'm more also a bit, on the prevention side. People in France feel that they cannot fill their pools anymore. They have already restricted access to water. And this is, sometimes I go into the bad scenarios, and I said it, I want to avoid them, that politicians, but I know that Germany also devised a strategy in case there is scarcity, who will have first water. But we should avoid this in any case, because this would deepen inequalities and would, deepen the cleavages in society. So, but sometimes we have to speak also the truth to our citizens.
Thank you. Well, building on that, Ms. Bosse, in your view, where should the EU budget or financing efforts focus if you really want to move the needle on water resilience?
Well, I'll build on what you say. I think actually, let's try always and tell the truth to the public, right? Let's try and be clear that, if we don't, this is what I said earlier, but if we don't deal with this within the coming, let's say 5-10 years, we will leave a huge problem Not just a little problem, but a huge problem. So let's deal with it. I do think that we have to look into different vehicles when we talk about the coming MFF. I'm not a strong believer in special funds because I do think it restricts us too much. But we need some kind of guiding instruments to prioritize this area because otherwise it will be left. It's such a busy agenda, and everything else just reaches the top very fast, more than pops, dashes up. That was what I wanted to say. So we need to support this agenda. I do put a lot of faith in the EIB, and they are very, very knowledgeable in this area, as they are in many, many areas. And I do think that there could be some support, putting them in, making them some kind of instrument, and use that also in the MFF. So that's one thing. And then you mentioned it all, the public-private partnerships. But here public has to come into play. And this is where, I'm back to, we need, in my opinion, to give the Commission some instruments so that if this does not happen on the ground in the nations, there is some kind, because this is borderless. There is no, we need to do this and fix this together. And I appreciate that there is a huge difference between many countries in the north and some countries in the south or east about, how much can we afford. And that's where we have to put the muscle together to back each other and to make sure that we combined the public spending with some kind of security from the EU system and the private. And this kind of infrastructure, this is, back to my business days, but if you look at the telcos, if you look at all infrastructure investments of a size, it will go also for the electrical grid. It has to be backed with public money from the starting point. Otherwise, the private money doesn't come. It's far too risky. So that's where we have to think about it. And then I'm going to say something that is a little bit controversial for some people, but I do think, but it has two legs. One, we need to think about price. Water has to be priced. And then I know some people get very worried because then is the access not possible for everybody because they can't afford it? That is a social issue. That has to be dealt with through the social systems. And of course, everybody has to have access to water. But if we don't price it, we're never going to get it into a value stream that we can actually work with.
Mentioned you don't believe in that.
That's a very gentle guiding instrument. I would like a more. It's the beginning. It's the beginning of a guiding instrument. But I would love to see it a little bit more committed. Let's put it like this. And it's because I have in my head an idea to say that, it is publicly funded in the nations, but supported by the EU. And then you attract private funding alongside with that. And that's where the guiding is coming into play.
So you take this one. We have enough.
So I continue. Paul, can I have your reflection on the water pricing topic?
Yes, first of all, I think it's important to have a mapping of the water prices that we see where and how the prices are published. And it's not the price is the costs, of course, and it's a taxation which is on the price added. So you have a lot of options in this area, but transparency on the pricing would be the most important question. I think in Saudi Arabia, you get 1 cubic meter for 0.02 euro, something like this. In Netherlands, I think it's 7 euros per cubic meter. So, and then of course there's also the question, the social question, and we had a big debate on this in the Economic and Social Committee. So we said at least any community should have one piped water area where everybody has the right to have 7 liters of water free every day. So to survive, because if you have no drinking water, after 3 days you die. So without drinking water, it's very critical. And then, of course, our average is taking maybe 120 to 140 liters per day. It should be cost-driven, not more than it costs. And then maybe there should be a short premium if you fill your football area with a swimming pool in a fully luxury. Of course, it should be some extra premium to afford the 7 liters for the poor and to have the right distribution. So, but what I said, it's a tailor-made situation. We have area where we have more than enough water. So why trigger the people there with keeping the spending on a low level? Of course, if you heat it, warm water, it's energy again, and so it's a lot of components. So the key question is to enable the society to use it in a tailor-made focus. And that would also clear the situation on water for all, because it's clear water is always free of charge. Water belongs to all of us, like the sun, the wind. But if you want to use it, somebody has to pay for making it usable.
Thank you.
What can I say more? No, it's, yes, of course. We all agree that water is a public common good. That's easy to say. But after saying that, we know that we need investment, we need infrastructure, we need the quality of water, etc. And now we see that society, public or private society, now invest a lot of money to the infrastructure and of course it has an impact of accessibility and the cost of water when we open every day. So it's not easy to manage this case and this situation. So yeah, but we must take great attention to people who have who live in poor situation. And then for those people, as a common good, the quality and the accessibility must be guaranteed for those people. So it's always a balance between people who can pay for water and people who don't pay for water. And of course, we need public services that can make the balance between the rich and poor, of course. But it's not easy to do it because we need now very huge investment on water and the distribution of water.
Yes. It's not only about money.
You have 1 minute, then I'm going to close.
Okay. It's not only about money. I think what we need is also more entrepreneurial thinking on this area. So that was the big success story of European Economic and Social Committee. We asked the EIT to come up with a water knowledge innovation community. It's now in the public procurement. It's so crucial that we get startups in this area, like Luna did it. Maybe I have a good idea, I make a business out of it. Not only startups, I think scale-ups are very important. Spin-offs from university and higher education. And EIT is only one small part in the whole puzzle, but I think this question of education, also in our school system, did you ever hear that education on water? So also to fix it in the overall system, and I think this movie would be perfect also to be shown in all our schools in Europe and on the globe.
Perfectly. Then let's conclude with that, because I have a last question to my panelists before we finish on time, so that Hildegard can leave on time. Yeah. Everybody knows now. Good. Is 1 or 2 words, what are the main messages that stuck with you from the movie?
Doesn't work. Oh, no, it does. I promised you that I would be honest, and I'd have to admit that I came in just as the movie ended. So I will not pretend that I saw the movie, but I will try and find it online, and I will see it. But I'm sure that if I'm allowed to guess, one word would be urgency, and another word would be some kind of collective effort.
Yeah, as you have seen, I have seen the movie. So I was here. No, but I would build on that. I think it's action. I very much like the end, the final words, because they were super positive. And I think that's what we need, actually. People who say we can, this is also what I said in my speech, we can manage. It's a huge task, but we can manage. I'm really convinced, because the more and more people we engage and
Not enough water to build good batteries.
So I would really call it the action. I would really call it the action issue is the most important thing. And you keep the positive spirit that we can cope with this challenge. And we have to say something, because I'm also working on development issues. Other regions have been busy with this question for a long time. Now we Europeans have waken up, I feel a bit ashamed, but now we realize we are the fastest warming continent. We are confronted with that. So I think it's also our obligation, to show this solidarity and bring it up as a global issue. And if we all join this effort, I'm pretty, confident that we do now, because we have the solutions now and we have to spread it all over the world, and it's possible. And I think we'll make progress in the next 4 years.
Well, very quickly. 2 words.
Communication. I think the main issue is to communicate the agenda. That's the reason why the movie won the Los Angeles Film Documentary Awards in 2025. And it was the best environmental documentary film. So I think the communication is key. And that's where we need the help of the European Commission. And in autumn, I'm invited to United Nations in New York for the General Assembly on a science conference to speak about water. And with our FP10, with the MFF, I think Europe should be in the lead.
Yes, more or less like Hildegard, because I'm more optimistic after the film. Sometimes when you see a movie on the environmental aspect, you are completely destroyed after, depressed. Not for this case, because water is the crossroad of industry policy, agricultural policy, citizen policy. And all together, we know that we can build a different future. And that's the message. We can build a different future. And that's, for me, the most important sign after this movie.
I think that is a great closure. Yeah. So thank you all very much. And then Hildegard, you can finish there at the stand.
No. I'm very glad that you have all been here. I hope we can continue, to work together. I think that's the most important thing. Thanks for being here. We take also the lessons from the movie, and let's see each other again as soon as possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Then Pietro, the official closure is up to you. Yes. Oh. Too many, yeah.
So great opportunity. innovation. What I mean. Rain. Now the bird. Now the trending, amazing. Amazing opportunity for industrial projects, clean tech. We are one of the leaders. So we have to sell our